Right, hello. I am Revna or Quinlyn, mundanely, and this is going to be a quick intro to the SCA, mostly focused on if you are a member of Falcon, but it will be mostly applicable for anyone. So first, just a little bit about me. I am an Armored Combat and Rapier Combat Marshal. I am the Falcons Keep Rapier Marshal at the moment. I'm the current Falcons Gate President, the current Northshield Kingdom Social Media Officer, and I've been in the SCA about 3.5 years now, and I am a GeoWave level fencer, which you will learn what that means later. But fencing is kind of the main thing that I'm good at in the SCA. So, first thing is, what does the SCA mean? The SCA stands for the Society for Creative Anachronism, and an anachronism is just something that is out of its time and place. So I have an example of that on the left here. It's a guy wearing armor using a phone. That would be an example of an anachronism. The goal of the SCA is to recreate pre-17th century skills, art, combat, and culture. The SCA is an international non-profit group that started at UC Berkeley by some friends hosting a big medieval themed party. I'm pretty sure it was a grad party, which was kind of cool. The SCA is split into regions called kingdoms. And as of 2024, I think still currently, there are 20 kingdoms within the SCA. These kingdoms are usually governed by a pair of two sovereigns, and then those sovereigns has a pair of heirs, and then a council of officers that help them with their reign. So the sovereigns can be a king and queen. It can also be two kings, two queens, two just sovereigns. Anyone can be the sovereign. It doesn't have to be a specific gendered role within the SCA. Kingdoms are also divided further into smaller groups. There are principalities, which I say they are nearly kingdoms. They're kind of like a baby kingdom. Basically, once a kingdom is too big, they will start to split off into principalities, and then eventually those principalities will probably become kingdoms. And then there are baronies, which are smaller than kingdoms. These generally a bunch of baronies within a kingdom, and they're kind of the larger groups within the kingdom. And then there are shires, which are smaller than baronies. And then there are cantons, which are kind of offshoots of baronies, but they're not quite big enough to be a shire. Shires function by themselves, while cantons generally get a bit more assistance from a barony. So, what can you do in the SCA? There are three overarching kind of types of activities in the SCA. There is combat, which consists of armored combat with rattan or rebated steel. Most of the armored combat we do is with rattan. There is also rapier and cotton thrust, and siege, target archery, and thrown weapons also count into combat. Some equestrian will also fall into combat, like jousting. Equestrian can kind of also go into ANS, kind of depending on what you do. But if it's too hot, it will get canceled like the other martial activities do. And then there is arts and science, which is the research and hands-on history and production of items that were made pre-17th century. And then there is also service, which is how the SCA functions. So service would include working at gate or check-in of an event, planning events, cooking feasts, which are the meals at the events. Without volunteers, the SCA does not exist because it is a volunteer-led organization. There are I think two or three paid workers in the SCA, and it's like the president and the legal person. So it is mostly volunteers. So if there are not volunteers, the SCA does not exist. So service is very important. And also equestrian, which kind of falls into the martial section and the ANS section. It's not quite as popular here in Northshield, but in some kingdoms where there are more horses and it's not cold as long of the year, equestrian is a lot more popular. But there are definitely lots of excellent equestrians in our kingdom, so Speaking of kingdoms, what kingdom are we in? We are in Northshield. Northshield makes up the UP of Michigan, Wisconsin, Minnesota, North Dakota, South Dakota, and part of Canada. So kind of part of the Midwest. We were originally a territory of the Middle Kingdom or the Mid Realm. But Northshield became a principality in 1993 and became a kingdom in 2004, which also happens to be the year that I was born. And on here is the Northshield website where you can do things like submit award recommendations, see our calendar of events, and all that stuff. So, very important website if you want to know when SCA events in Northshield are happening. You need to look at the calendar on the website. So, how are the sovereigns and heirs chosen? Sovereigns are generally chosen through a heavy armored tournament um, called a crown tournament. There has also been one crown tournament fought with rapiers so far. Hope maybe more, depending on when you're watching this video. But it happened in the East Kingdom, and hopefully in the future there will be more crowns fought with rapier and maybe even other stuff in the future. Uh, a combatant will choose a consort to fight for, and then if the combatant wins, them and their consort will become the next heirs. There will be the heirs, or if you hear prince and princess, that is the titles that the heirs can use. Again, it could be two princes, two heirs, whatever. It doesn't have to be gendered. And they will serve as heirs for 6 months. And then after that 6 months, they will become sovereigns, which they will do for another 6 months. And then they will step down. Uh, they become the sovereigns at an event called coronation, generally. And that is also the same time when the sovereigns step down, the heirs step in. That's what happens at coronation events. Fighters and consorts do not have to be partners in real life, although some certainly are. You do not have to be. So this is only really relevant if you're watching it right now. Who are the current king and queen and prince and princess? This, again, might change depending on when you're watching it. But right now, when I'm filming this video, Tom is our king, Wu is our queen, Axel is our prince, and Jack is our princess. And they're all from Minnesota. So, what is our local group for Falcon's Gate? Our local SCA group is called the Shire of Falcon's Keep. Falcon's Gate is not technically a part of Falcon's Gate, but we do use the loaner gear for our practices sometimes, mostly the armored loaner gear. Falcon's Gate is not technically part of the SCA. We are a campus club at UWSP. We're not part of the SCA, so we can be run by students still. SCA groups are generally not run by students, and we really want to be run by students. The local SCA group, we do work with the local SCA group, the Shire of Falcons Keep, a lot. So it's kind of helpful for both of us to stay separate. So, good areas in Northshield to know. The baronies. These are the 5 baronies of Northshield. The barony of Yaravetler has these catfishes. They are the Madison area. The barony of Windhaven is this. I don't know if it's a dragon or a flying snake. I always think it looks like a flying snake. Sorry if it's supposed to be a dragon, Windhaven people. But that is the barony of Windhaven in the Green Bay area. The barony of Care Antworth Mar is in the Milwaukee area and has this kind of tower thing. The barony of Nordskogen is in the Minnesota Twin Cities area, and they have the snowflakes. And the barony of Castel Rouge is the Canadians. They're over here. They also have a tower and the leaves, and they are in Winnipeg, Canada. That's the one barony I still need to visit is Castel Rouge. So then, what is a persona? So Revna is not my actual name, it is my persona name. Personas are kind of similar to cosplay or roleplay. It's a persona is an individual that could have hypothetically existed pre-17th century. You can choose whatever name you want for your persona as long as you can find historical evidence for it. So if you can find someone who had that name, you can use it. You can also do cross-culture first and last names as long as you can prove that those cultures interacted at a certain time period. You cannot presume to be an actual historious figure such as Julius Caesar. Um, so that's kind of the main rule, along with that you cannot claim a title or a station that you have not earned. For example, Sir or Duke, or Earl. I cannot claim to be those unless I have actually earned those titles within the SCA, which we'll get to how to do that later. So, why do you want to make a persona? Personas can be helpful to guide your decisions in the SCA, such as which garb or armor to wear. They can also add just kind of another layer of depth to the SCA experience to make you really get away from your boring mundane life. I'm sure your mundane life is quite entertaining, but it can kind of just add another layer to that aspect of kind of getting away from normal life and stepping into this kind of fake world that we got going on. And then if you are not interested in making a persona, you do not have to. It is optional. You can always just go to events and use your normal mundane name. When I say mundane, I'm just referring to the actual life. So the real world. Um, if you hear about a persona and you're like, that does not sound like something that I'd enjoy, then don't make one. You by no means have to. So then we have another thing that you'll see at events, which is heraldry. Within the SCA, there is two types of heraldry. There is voice heraldry and then the device type heraldry. Voice heralds are the people who speak at court. They're the ones who read off the scrolls and stuff and who will like call fighters in. So that's voice heraldry. And then this is kind of your device heraldry. I think book heraldry is what some people call it. Um, but your heraldry is just a good way to mark your stuff, show people that you're there, especially if you're fighting. If you have your heraldry on your shield, it will make you a lot more recognizable on the field because it's hard to see you if you are wearing a helmet. Again, it's also entirely optional. There's a bunch of weird rules for heraldry. Don't fear though, you don't have to learn them all. You can talk to a herald and they will help you. So then we have what is garb? Garb is the clothes that people wear at events. It can be super historically accurate if you want. It also does not have to be super historically accurate. I have one of my early outfits on this picture on the left. It is not historically accurate at all. As long as you make an attempt, that is what matters. So generally, there is a 10-foot rule. So do you look vaguely historical from about 10 feet away, and then you are good at an event. The outfit I was wearing in this is pretty bad. If you look bad enough at events, some people might hand you garb. I think that's how I ended up with most of my garb, is I looked really bad at a few events, and people went, no. Um, but don't feel pressure to have immaculate garb right away. It takes a lot of time and effort to kind of build up your garb wardrobe, and no one expects you to have really, really nice garb when you start. It's just something to kind of continually work at, is improving your garb. And if you never really want to have like super researched and detailed garb, you don't have to, as long as you look, again, vaguely historical from about 10 feet away. So, then we get to events. What is an SCA event? SCA events are where Scadians, that's what we call people in the SCA, gather and do all the activities that I have mentioned. So we get together, we fight, we do ANS classes, all that stuff. So how to find your local events? We go to the Northshield website. I'll go to this at the end of the presentation so I don't have to click away. Um, but you go there, there's a list of events, where they are, what date there is. There's generally some type of theme at an event. Um, sometimes, sometimes it's just an event where all the things are happening, and some will only have select activities. So please make sure to read the description of the event so you know what activities are going on there. If I'm like, I really want to fight rapier at Fighting in the Shade, they do not have rapier at Fighting in the Shade, and I don't want to be sad when I get to an event because they don't have an activity I thought they did. So please check that you are going to an event that has the activity you are wanting to do. Most events also have a fee that you pay right away when you get there at the gate or troll. We're kind of moving away from troll because some people didn't like that term, so most people now call it gate. So right when you get to an event, you want to try to pay the gate fee kind of as soon as possible to make sure you don't forget. And generally, you will get a site token, which is kind of just a little trinket. At multi-day events, it is very important to keep track of your site token. So if I go to, say, Wars and Warlords, which a lot of us call Dub Dub, I want to keep my site token so people know that I have paid and am not there without paying. And then there are big, what we call known world events, which are events with many kingdoms. The two largest that you will hear a lot about if you stay in the SCA are Gulf Wars, which is in Mississippi, and Penzic, which is in Pennsylvania. Penzic is the larger of the two. It's also 2 weeks, whereas Gulf Wars is 1 week. You will hear a lot of stories about Gulf Wars and Penzic because a lot of fun things happen there. Yes. So then we get to court. What is court? Court is basically a time at an event. It generally is at the end of an event or at the beginning of an event, but they can happen throughout the day, and some events have multiple courts. Most events will just have one evening court, though. And they might have some what we call field courts that happen kind of by the combat fields, generally for combat awards. So, what happens at court? The purpose of court is to acknowledge people's work and dedication within the SCA. So, in Northshield, everyone receives a handmade individualized scroll to keep as a memento for their accomplishment. So, if I get an award, I get called up into court, I go up, and I bow. I sit down. They read the stuff that is on the scroll, and then you get the scroll, and you get to keep it to remember your accomplishments. Transitions of power also happen at court, such as coronations, which I mentioned earlier, which is the heirs becoming the sovereigns, and baronial transitions. So the baronies are led. They have a baron and baroness, or two barons, some type of baronage. Um, those change, I think, every like 5 years. I don't remember. I can't remember how often the baranages change. Not something you really need to know. But that also happens at court when they change baranages. There's also a lot of shtick at court. Shtick is basically just the fun stuff, the fun, silly stuff that we do at events. Uh, we also have children chase someone for toys at court. And a note, court can definitely be boring when you are starting out in SCA because you don't really know anyone getting awards. So I would highly suggest to bring like a small craft or a small quiet game to play with your friends during court. They become much more entertaining once you actually know people getting awards because you're like, yay, my friend is getting an award for all the hard work that they did. Courts continued. There are different types of courts at events. Typically, there are kingdom courts, which are held by the sovereigns when they are there. There are also sometimes what's called a regency court, which is when the sovereign is not there, but someone else will do the business of the sovereign for them. For example, the heirs might hold court to do the business of a sovereign if it is needed. There are also baronial courts for landed baronages, who are the people kind of at the head of the baronies, who will give out baronial awards that are specific to their baronies. Who are the people standing behind the royals? I wondered this for a really long time because no one really tells you. Um, there's a bunch of people standing behind the thrones doing court. The one talking is one of the voice heralds. If you like talking loudly, this could be a great job for you. If you're like, I really want to talk loudly in front of people, leave a comment and I'll put you in contact with a voice herald and you can learn how to become a voice herald. Royals also typically have champions for armored combat and rapier combat who stand behind their thrones. These champions are sometimes chosen, sometimes they're fought for in rapier through stuff like the King's Prowess tournament or the Princess Sleeve tournament. There can also be an armored King's Prowess tournament. So the Royals choose their champions basically however they decide. Sometimes the Chamberlain also will stand behind the throne. Really, it's whoever the royals want to stand behind the throne will stand behind the throne. So now we get into the nitty gritty of court, which is the awards. What are these awards that people are getting in court? So there's four kind of types of awards. It's kind of a leveled system. There are Award of Arms, which are the kind of entry-level awards. Recipients of this award can use the titles Lord, Lady, or Noblesse, or Noble also works. Grant of Arms are kind of the mid-level awards, and you can use the Honorable Lord, Honorable Lady, Honorable Noble. And then there is the Patent of Arms, or peerages. So there's different titles for the Order of the Chivalry. It's generally Sir, and then the other ones generally something like Master or Mistress. There are other titles that peers will use, but those are kind of the most common. And then the fourth type is a non-armigerous award, so recognition that does not carry a change in your title. And if you want to read specific descriptions of the Northshield Awards, that is what this link is. If you go on the Northshield website and look up award descriptions, it will show up. So then here is the specific awards within Northshield. So the first award that you will generally get in the SCA is a blank award of arms, which is basically saying, yay, you've been in the SCA, we see you doing stuff, good job. So you will get your lord or lady or noble title from that, and you generally receive a little circlet that you can wear to show your station for that. And then we also have awards of arms for all the different activities for armored, rapier, arts and science, service, thrown weapons, and equestrian. So the griffin and sword for armored, the glove for rapier, the black flame for arts and science, the cygnus for service, the black bolt for thrown weapons, the palfrey for equestrian. And then we have the Grant of Arms Awards, or the GOAs. Within this, there are also court baronies, which is kind of the highest level of Grant of Arms. Recipients can wear a silver coronet adorned with 6 pearls. Court baronies are generally granted to people who have done a lot of service for the crown. So people who help a lot with a crown's reign generally is who receives a court barony. So then they are a baron of that sovereign's court. So the Grant of Arms bearing awards, again, we have them for all the activities. For armored, it's the Order of the Black Griffin, Rapier, the Order of Vitruvius Caliper, Arts and Science, Bridget's Flame, Service, the Order of the Hand of Tyr, sometimes we call them Hotties, Thrown Weapons and Archery, the Order of Aquila, most people just call it the Order of Aquila. I'm not going to say the rest of it. The equestrian one is the Order of the Destrider. And then we have the peerages, or the Patent of Arms bearing awards. These ones are the ones that you will generally see specific regalia for. Regalia is stuff that you wear that kind of denotes things about you. So a certain title, a certain award, the stuff you wear for that, we generally call regalia. It can also be stuff for representing student relationships. So the Patent of Arms Bearing Awards for the Order of Armored Combat, there's the Order of Chivalry. Within the Order of Chivalry, you can choose to be a knight or a master of arms. A knight will wear a white belt and a gold chain, and a Master of Arms wore a white baldric. Arts and Sciences, there's the Order of the Laurel, whose heraldry is a laurel wreath. For service, there's the Order of the Pelican, who is represented by a pelican in their pride. I think that's the word for it. And then rapier combat, it's the Order of Defense, who generally wear a white collar. So that's kind of the peerages. There is also the Order of the Mark, which is for ranged weapons, so stuff like archery, thrown weapons, and siege is the Order of the Mark. I cannot describe their heraldry right now. I could put a picture of it. Um, but they wear white bracers. And then within peerages, there are also royal peers, which is someone who has been a sovereign. If you have been a sovereign once, after you step down, you become a count or countess. If you have been a sovereign twice, after you step down the second time, you become a duke or duchess. So here is a little guide. I did not make this. I do not remember who made this. Thank you to whoever made this. Oh, it has their name on it. Ellen DeLacy. Thank you, that person. Um, this is a mostly accurate thing of all the awards. Please note that baronages are not peerages, but they are on this graphic. They're not technically peerage, but this is the heraldry for all the peers. This is the Order of the Mark. The mod. Mod is generally what a lot of people call the people in the Order of Defense, which stands for Master of Defense. And then the Pelican for service, laurel wreath for arts and science, the white belt for the knights. And then there are the different types of belts that are not technically reserved, but you will see a lot. So squires, who is the student or associate of a knight, wear a red belt. An apprentice, who is a student of a laurel, wears a green belt. And a protege, who's a student of someone who is a pelican, wears a yellow belt. People who are students of the Order of the Fence in Northshield generally wear a red collar. Sometimes people take students called cadets who wear red scarves. That is more for other kingdoms who have the Order of the White Scarf for rapier. There has not really been stuff decided for the Order of the Mark yet in terms of student regalia yet. And then up here, these are what a count and countess or duke and duchess can wear. Count and countess can wear an embattled border. I think cornet is what they're called. And then a duke and duchess can wear one with strawberry leaves. So, how the heck do people get these awards? They get recommended. So, if you have a Northshield profile, you can submit award recommendations. You can recommend people to get any award that you want, but please make sure to only submit award recommendations for people who you believe are deserving of an award, because all of these award recommendations do get read. So, I will not do this demo now, but there is a form. If you click on the form and fill out the form, I'll put this form in the video description. Then it will make a Northshield profile for you. So, this is a quick what to do if you get called into court. First, don't be scared to get called into court. It's a good thing. If you're wearing any live steel, so anything actually sharp, take it off. And then once you get to about 10 feet or so of the thrones, you do a little bow. And then after you bow, there's generally a kneeling cushion. You kneel on the cushion if you can. If there are a bunch of people up there with you, you don't always have to kneel. When it's just you, you generally kneel on the cushion, though, if you can, physically. If you have bad knees, don't kneel. And then the royals will generally talk for a little bit, and then you get a thing. Yay! And then once you've received your award, you stand up, you take a little step back, you give another little bow, and then you go back to your seat, and then woohoo, you got a cool thing. So your first court, you do get called up in your first court in Northshield. when they ask for people who it is their first event or first royal court, you will go up. Don't be scared. Again, it's cool. You generally receive a mug at your first court. Some royals do stuff besides mugs, but generally we do mugs to kind of remember your first event. Don't go up when they call for the children of Northshield. One of the old Falcons Gates presidents told the students to do that. They were referring to the actual children, and the children generally chase a poor soul who carries a toy chest in what we call the toy run. Uh, so don't go up for the children of Northshield unless you are an actual child. Okay, SCA officers to know. You will generally just hear these terms a lot. Marshals are the people who are in charge of the safety of combatants. So they inspect gear and authorize people and make sure that people are safe to fight. The Kingdom Earl Marshal is the head guy for armored and rapier combat within the kingdom. The Kingdom Rapier Marshal is the main guy for rapier combat within a kingdom. The Minister of Arts and Sciences is the main guy for arts and sciences within a kingdom, or barony or shire. Most baronies and shires have a Minister of Arts and Sciences. A seneschal is kind of like the president for a group. So kingdom, baronies, and shires all have seneschals. Um, so they make a lot of the big decisions for those groups and kind of keep them functioning. And then the baron and baronesses, or the baronages, which I've kind of mentioned earlier, think kind of like the king and queen of England. They have some administrative power, but they're also kind of the figureheads for their baronies. So then, what is SCA membership? An SCA membership is not required to attend SCA events or participate in the SCA. You do not have to be an SCA member to do most things in the SCA. The only real reason you need to get an SCA membership is if you want to be an SCA officer. If you want to be an officer such as a marshal, then you have to become an SCA member. Also, if you attend more than like 4 events a year, you're going to pay less because it's about a $40 a year membership. And when you are an SCA member, events cost $10 less than non-members. So it makes it kind of financially worth it. But you might only have to be an SCA member unless you want to be an SCA officer. So, how to find things outside of Falcon's Gate. You can go on the website and look at the local groups. If you move way far away, you can also go on the Kingdom lookup page. There is also the Northshield discussion group, which is a good place to ask questions. If you don't know something, you will generally get an answer. There is also the SCA College Group Discord on here, and it's just a nice way to kind of meet other college people in the SCA. So then, households and schools. We've kind of gone over most of the important information. This is just stuff that you will hear a lot about, so it's kind of nice to know about. So you will hear a lot about households within the SCA. It's basically just groups of people who like to hang out together, and sometimes they will have their own heraldry for the house or school. Members of Falcon's Gate often join the orphanage, which is a place for people who are new to the SCA but are not yet part of a household. So it's kind of like a household, but it's for everyone. There are also schools in Northshield. Northshield schools are typically more focused on fencing. The one you'll hear the most about in Falcon's Gate is the Black Isle Academy of Fence, or the Black Isle, because a lot of Falcon's Gate presidents have joined that fencing school, including myself. You will also sometimes, not as often, hear about melee units, which may or may not be a house order school, but generally they're just people who like to fight together when they go to war. The one you hear the most about here is the Hellhounds, because it's mostly Northshielders. And was started by Northshielders, and that's mostly at Gulf Force, where the Hellhounds fight. So then, what is regalia and largesse? I kind of went over regalia a bit earlier, but regalia is specific items of dress, jewelry, or decorations that you will wear to signify a certain rank or office. Some regalia is reserved, such as the white belts, the gold chains and stuff that we talked about earlier. Some are just cultural, like a red provost collar, a red squire belt, all that stuff. So you can wear all the non-reserve stuff. You might just get questions about who your teacher is. Uh, Largesse are gifts or items of appreciation donated by the populace or sometimes awarded by the royals, given out by the royalty and other officials as tokens, thanks, hospitality, all that stuff. So generally, royals will have largesse that they will hand out. So, for example, if I am fighting at Gulf Wars, a lot of the times the royals will make largesse or have the populace help make largesse, so everyone gets a token to remember that Gulf Wars by. Royals also will hand out their largesse when they see you do something cool. So it's always nice to get cool things from the royals. I think it's cool. So if you want to get into service within the SCA, there's a lot of ways to do it, but it can be kind of intimidating. Retaining is always a great way to get into service. It's a very I would call it one of the easier service positions. You basically just follow the royals around with a bag, because the royals aren't supposed to carry their own stuff. No, no. There's generally sign-up pages to be retainers on the Kingdom Facebook group, and generally retaining shifts are just about an hour. It's also a good way to kind of meet people and to get to know the royals, because the royals will also interact with a lot of people. So it's a nice way to kind of see who people are, see who the royals are, all that stuff. Working gate is also a nice kind of intro way to get into service. You sit at the gate and you check people in and you make sure they pay their event fee. Pretty simple. Again, normally if they need help with that, it will be posted on the Facebook page. Becoming a marshal is a great way to get into service. Taking up an officer position. Those ones are a little bit more of a time commitment, especially becoming an officer. But even just becoming a Falcon Skit officer is a great way to do service. Teaching is also a great way to do service, but generally you need to have knowledge to be able to teach. But I would highly suggest if you're like, I want to do some service, but I don't know what to do, try retaining, try working gate. Those are great kind of intro to service roles. And then here are just some of my tips for enjoying the SCA and enjoying events. Talk to people. People want you to be there, and generally, we love when new people are at SCA events, and people really do want to help you. We want to share our nerd. So don't be afraid to go up and talk to people at events. Even if they look big and scary and you're like, oh my gosh, their garb is so nice. If you think our garb is nice, go tell them that garb is nice. They'll probably really appreciate it. So talk to people, and then my screen decided to die. Okay, and then also try things. You don't know what you're gonna like until you do it. So I suggest trying all the different things. Try all the styles of combat that you can get your hands on. Try different ANSs. You don't have to keep doing all of them, but by trying all of them, you will see what you end up liking. Also, don't yuck. Don't let other people yuck your yum. So if you're like, I really don't like this, then you don't have to do it. If someone tells you have to hand sew to be in the SCA, tell them, no, I don't. I personally hate hand sewing. No one will convince me to hand sew. So if I'm like, I really want to do this specific thing, and people tell me that you have to do this other thing to do this thing, you don't really have to. If you just want to fight, then just fight. If you just want to sew tunics, then just sew tunics. Do what you enjoy. Don't let other people convince you to do things that you really don't like doing. A general guide of stuff to bring to events, a mug, and if you are going to a multi-day special event, especially a mug strap, which is a strap that goes on your belt that keeps your mug there. And then snacks and caffeine, if you are a caffeine enjoyer, a bag, something to sit on, a crafted game, cash, and something to write in. Basically, you don't want to get hungry at events. You want something to put your fluids in. You want something for your stuff to go in. You want to be able to sit down. You want to pay for things. And you want to write things down to remember stuff. Also, if you have a phone, I suggest bringing a phone charger because your phone will probably die, especially at multi-day events. So then, a little bit more about war. I really, really like war. There's two large wars that I mentioned earlier, Gulf Wars and Pennsic. Pennsic is generally is over the summer, and Gulf Wars is doing spring. Occasionally, Gulf Wars lines up with spring break, which this year it does. It might not when you're watching this video, but for me right now it does. Woohoo! Pennsic is 2 weeks long, and Gulf Wars is 1 week long. Pennsic is larger, but there is a whole lot to do at both. Pennsic generally has more non-Scadian, so people who do kind of other medieval stuff, but maybe not SCA stuff. Um, Pennsic and and Gulf Wars both have a lot of parties. Um, but Pennsic to me has more of that kind of party atmosphere. Uh, they have the area called the Bog, which is basically a big area where people party all war. They're both a great time. I would suggest Gulf Wars as a great first war, but either are a great time to go to and a great time to kind of meet people from outside of your local area and kind of see what the rest of the SCA is about. Because there is certainly differences between kingdoms and groups within the SCA. So hopefully all that was helpful. I know it was a lot of information. I will link this presentation in the description of the video, and if you have any questions, you can also comment. There's no need to remember all of this stuff right away. It's kind of stuff that will stick with you over time if you continue in the SCA. So I hope that was helpful. Bye!